Hello, this is Maja and I'm a part of the Associate Trainer program for Art2Ride. Here I am today with my 6-year-old mare Oprah, and she's been with me for about 6 months now. In this video we're gonna show you some work in hand, and later in the video there's gonna be some mounted work as well. So what we've really been focusing on in both the work in hand, lunging and mounted work is trust and relaxation. So in the beginning she didn't really listen to me, and she still has struggle listening to me. So that's something we work really hard on, just being calm and staying calm, and being okay with being calm, because in the beginning she kind of got frustrated when nothing happened, but now she finds even more relaxation in knowing that I won't pull on her, or nothing bad will happen. So that she has found a lot of peace in knowing that. So initially here in the work in hand, she doesn't really stretch that much, not as much as I would like her to. But still, she's an animal, and just as she has to warm up to get her body going and to be able to use her muscles properly. So, and there she dropped her neck really nice, and her back came up, and then again she came up a bit. As you can see, she looked at something or heard something, and that's how it is throughout our sessions. On the best days she doesn't listen to anything else but me, but on the bit harder ones she just focuses on everything else around her. So if you look here, she kind of tucks in her nose a little bit, and for her to get that ultimate stretch you really don't want that. You want the nose to be in front of the vertical, and there you saw she wanted to run away a bit. So when she wants to run away, I just hold on the inside rein. So if she runs, she just goes around in a circle. So I don't want to pull on the outside rein, because that's just backwards tension. But if I just hold, not hard, but just hold on the inside rein, she can't run away anywhere. So that's how I what I do when she gets like that. And then I want to follow her with my hand and let the rein go. So you really want and here you can see it again, I just hold on the inside rein to make her not run away, but rather go around me in a circle. So when I do that, and when she calms down and I release, she really gets a nice stretch, and so she calms down really well when I do that. And here you can see she gets kind of nervous again, and I hold on the inside rein and then release. So, and then she gets a really, really nice stretch. So you can see really her back lifting up, and just her whole body getting a better pace. So, and still her nose is a little bit tucked in. You really want the nose to be in front of the vertical for them to get the ultimate stretch, but it can't be perfect in one day, and she has really nice moments where she gets that nose out, and so on. So So what I try to do when I do the work in hand, it is to really focus on what I do with my whip and my outside rein. So the outside rein, initially some horses really they can't really take the contact because they're, you could say, afraid of the bit. So that's something I've been working on, getting her to seek the outside rein or the reins, and get her to understand the lateral movements, understand what I want when I touch her with the whip. So you never want the horse to run away from you. That's never what you want. But when you touch with your whip behind the girth area, you want the horse to do a lateral movement. So it's just like we do with our legs, and it can be, for some horses it can be confusing, so you just have to be really forgiving when initially starting the work in hand. But she's become really nice at it, and some days she stretches all the way down and you can see the withers come up, really. And that's really nice, I think. So here she comes up a bit, and when she does that, I try to follow the outside rein when she comes up, because I feel like she then has to, when I take the contact again and then slightly release, just as you do when in the mounted work, she seeks it again and then comes back to the stretch, which now is really good, actually. And something I know I myself have to work on a lot is to have soft hands, and not have any backward tension, especially since she does tuck her nose in. It's really hard for me not to pull back, but rather to lead the way, so to speak. So that's something I've really practiced on, and also the outside rein, of course. So here I'm just trying to make her move a bit laterally, and she doesn't really want to, so she comes up, and I think I held on a little too much on the inside rein right there. So there I'm doing a bit of a lateral work again, and she comes up. So she gets sometimes she gets stressed when I do lateral work. So I've just started to introduce it slightly, and that's also something that is hard, knowing how much lateral you have to go, how much what you have to do, because even though you should do the same as when you're on the horse's back, it can get really hard sometimes. So there I pushed her too much to the side instead of letting her flow forward. And in the lateral movement you really don't want the rhythm to change, so that's something I've been struggling with, having the lateral movement and still have the same rhythm. So she gets kind of frustrated on me, and I can really understand why. So, but she comes down to a stretch, and there she heard something, so she came up, and I'm just gonna do a small circle. I think I was a bit too hard on my inside hand right there, I could have been much calmer. And now when she comes down to a nice stretch, I believe this is when I choose to change directions. So this is the next side. And she does work quite well in both directions, I would say. I don't think she has one side that is, really better than the other one. It's mainly me who has it more difficult in this direction, I think. So that's something you have to keep in mind. As humans, we have it harder in one direction as well, and so we can make it harder for the horse to work correctly. So initially she does have a nice stretch. She comes down and stretches, not as low as I would like to, but in the beginning that's fine. And in this direction as well, I just try to keep the contact with the outside rein and make sure that she moves. Just when she comes up, I make her move just slightly lateral, not much at all, sometimes not even noticeable. So sometimes when I'm working with, thinking about the outside rein, you have to remember you have to let go as well. So that's something when I've been working on the contact with the outside rein is, remembering to letting go and letting her really seek downwards. So that's something I myself have to work on as well. And if you look, she has quite big movements. Her bum is going up and down quite a lot. And if you look at her head, sometimes she goes kind of back and forth, and I believe it's because she doesn't really have the muscles to stabilize her head. So I try to not restrict her when she does that, because you have to let the horse be a horse, so to speak. She has to be able to feel her own body and explore all the new things that are happening to her. So I think she has a nice stretch, even though it's not as deep as I would like. But she gets there at some days, and today was quite a tense day. But she still, right as of now, she stretches nicely and is relaxed and listens mainly to me. So that's nice. So in the beginning, when I was doing the work in hand, I did quite small circles as well as I did on the lunge line. But if I could go back, I would tell myself not to do that. You really don't want to keep them on those small circles. You want them to be able to flow forward and just feel their own body. And sometimes I do go in on the smaller circles, like when she gets a bit scared or nervous or hears something. But mainly you want as big of a circle as possible, because what I've felt with her is that the more forward and the bigger circles I've got, the better and more relaxed she gets. So there she heard something and she just wanted to run away, so I had to I stopped her a bit, and then we just went on like nothing happened. So when things happen, you really just, you don't want to make a thing out of it. And what you saw me do there is just what I did in the other direction. I just hold slightly on the inside rein so that she goes around instead of just runs away when she hears something. So she was a bit spooky today, but I thought she did nicely. So I switched over to riding, and here at first she gets a bit tense when I get up, and as you can see, her head kind of goes back and forth, and that's her just being overall tense. And if you look closely, you can't really see because of the light, but I do not have a saddle on, and you really don't want to not have a saddle when riding a horse, even though it's really comfortable, because the pressure is directly on to the spine. But what I've felt with her is that her current saddle doesn't fit her, so I choose to ride bareback instead. I don't do it often because I don't ride her often, but when I do, I ride her bareback because I feel like she gets a more free movement and she isn't at all as tense as she is when she has the saddle. So that's what I'm thinking. I feel like if the horse gets more relaxed of me riding bareback than with that saddle, it's worth to do it for a while, because I don't ride her often, so it's really not that big of a problem. So here she stretches nicely. She still has her nose kind of tucked in, which is one of the hardest things, when in the work in hand you can kind of fix it, so to speak. It's easier to correct it, but when mounted it's harder to really make her get in front of the vertical. And maybe it has to do with my capacities as a rider, or maybe it has to do with her having, more weight on to her back, making it harder for her. I don't really know, but I've just noticed that it's harder. So she does have a nice stretch, even though it's not as good as what I would want it. She does have really nice stretches at times, and she still has that wave through her body, and she still has a nice movement through her body. And I just try to follow her movement and try to not restrict her, which is really hard because she is a big mover. So you have to really think about how you sit and what you do with your own body. So I don't always have her bent to the inside, as you will see. I sometimes make her face a bit outwards. You could say it's a reversed shoulder in, I think. And that's just because I found that it's easier for her when on a circle sometimes. So that's something I do at times. But then I try to make her step out bend to the inside and really step off that inside hind leg like we want to. Sometimes I make a reversed shouldering. So as you can see, she does stretches a bit, but she doesn't really stretch all the way down as I would like to, but still I think she's doing a great job. She's only 6 months into this training, and I really like the results she's given me. So, and as usual, the other person riding, I would like for you all to not comment on that, because, well, that's if she wasn't there, she wouldn't be part of the video. So I think she has, sometimes she gets a bit slow, so that's something I have to work on, her activity, but she still has nice movement. And there she came down a bit more, and usually when she comes down to that really deep stretch, she does get more activity, so that's really nice to see. And it's really nice. When I noticed that, I got really happy. So here you can see she really tucked her, well, not that much, but to me she really tucked her own nose in there. And I just try to follow her movement with my body and my hands, and just like we did in the work in hand, we really want them to step off that inside hind leg to get that back up and push the back up and take more contact on the outside rein. And that's something I really like about this work. It's that we push the horse, but we never push it further than it can handle. So we don't push it beyond its limit. And she's never mad at me. Since I've started working with this, the horses don't swish their tails at me, or you don't ever feel that tension of the horse getting so frustrated because it doesn't really know or is able to do what you want it to do. So that's something I really appreciate with this work. It's that the partnership gets so much better, and you start trusting each other so much more. And there she got a really nice stretch, as you could see. And in the turn there, it's hard, but I try to lead the way instead of pulling backwards on the inside rein. And that's really hard. Just like in the work in hand, you never want there to be any backwards tension. So in the turns, I try to remind myself to hold up my hand and almost take it more forward rather than pulling it backwards. And so there I just clipped out a bit because someone walked in front of the camera, and I don't want to put anyone on the internet that doesn't want to be there. So she has settled down really nicely, and this session is about, with the work in hand and the mounted part, it's about 40 minutes, I think. So it's a quite long session, I would say. I normally don't ride her this long, but since I'm only doing it in the walk, and she's stretching so nicely at times, I think it's really not doing her any harm. So there she comes up a bit again, and then she comes down, and I have to lead the way, so to speak. I think I've said it before, but you want to show the horse that you can stretch, because in the beginning she would just suck herself, her neck into her body and not elongate it, and there she got kind of scared, and there was a noise from the gate where people are running. And here you can see me going just right by the wall, and usually I try to keep a distance between me and the wall, because I don't want the wall to stabilize her. I want herself to stabilize herself, so to speak. And I think I'm starting the trot here, and as I said before, I don't have a saddle, so it's harder for her to keep her back up since I have to sit down. But she is doing a really nice job with that, and I feel like it's not worse than if I would have the saddle on. So she stretches nicely, and she does get her back up even though I'm sitting down, because she has so much free movement with her shoulders, so she's able to reach further down with her neck. And as you can see, her tail is flopping from side to side, and I really like when I see that. It means she's relaxed and has found harmony. And she as you can see, she tucks in her nose as well in the trot, and I've thought about it a bit, and I think it's due to lack of muscles, but also I think I could correct it a bit better if I had a better activity. Still, you don't want the horse to run, and I have quite good activity already, but I think I will try to make her even more active and see what that does to her nose. So here I just try to be really soft with my seat. I don't want to bounce onto her back since I don't have a saddle, so it gets a bit harder. But she, as you can see, she stretches nicely, and it's not any worse than if I would have a saddle that was ill-fitted. So so she, just like if you look at my lunging video, you can see her coming up and then going down and coming up again, and that's really what she does in the mounted work as well. When she comes down, she stays there for a little while, and then she tends to come up again, and that's just because she doesn't have the capacity to stay in that deep stretch yet. So that's a nice stretch still. She does have her moments, and she's really working as good as she possibly can. And I try to just follow her movements. As I said, she is a big mover, so I have to use my core strength to be able to sit straight and not lean back or forward or bounce onto her back, and there she wanted to walk again, and I said to her to keep going because I wanted to just do a little bit more of the trot, and there you saw she has released quite nicely there. She stretches a bit more consistent, even though she comes up at times. She does get better, and I think she's really trying here, and that's what I like so much about her and her personality. She always tries to do her best, and I don't think I'm trotting for that much longer, and like you do in the walk, you want her to move off that inside hind leg, and that's something we've been struggling with, so I have to make really big circles, especially when I'm on her back, to keep her moving forward and not lose the activity. So here we came back to the walk, and you know, my sessions are mainly in the walk, especially when doing work in hand before riding, which I usually do, because I find it makes her more relaxed when getting on her back, especially on those days when she is a bit more tense from the get-go. So here she has a nice stretch, and I really like her movement. As you saw there, when she really released her pole, I think it's called, she gets a lot of movement, and sometimes when she does that, when she really releases her neck, she kind of surprises herself with such big movement, so she kind of comes up sometimes when she does that, but I think when she's experienced it enough, and when she knows what it is and how nice it feels, I think she will stay down there and just keep going with that big wave. And as you can see, she takes big steps and steps underneath herself. I would like for her to stretch even further, and to get her nose out in front of the vertical, but she is really trying. And you know, you can't make a horse go perfectly when it doesn't have the capacity to do that, due to lack of muscles, or you know, mental issues, and so on. So I think she's doing a really nice job. Something I have to work on is where I look. I tend to look down a lot onto her neck and onto, you know, the ear area, and when I look up, I can really feel the horse and look where I'm going, and it gets so much easier for her to move when I do that. So that's something I really have to practice on, because that's something that's super hard for me to do. So here in the end of our session, she stretches really nicely. You can see her whole body just moving and flowing forward, and I think she did a great session today. And as I said, it takes time, at least 2 years, to get a horse to build up the muscles to be able to carry a rider properly. So again, this is Maja from the Associate Trainer program for Art2Ride.